assume, because you said it's extrinsic, so it's more of a status profile, maybe. Would that be?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Assumptions can be signifiers.
Okay.
They could be indicators that we imbue value to, but they don't have value in and of themselves.
Yeah. Okay.
And don't get me wrong. I believe the military is one of the most
assuming
duty. But we have to. Like,
no, yeah,
you have to assume certain things because of the window of decision making.
Well, yeah,
and we are, the most
benefit of doubt. Like you have to assume that this person's been in 4 years. You have to assume that he could take over a small leadership role because he's been groomed to do that for the last 4 years, even though he may not be able to. But the assumption is that he's able to.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. If you're a fire team leader, you can be a fire team leader. Now, whether you're heavy, whether you're infantry, or whether you're light armor, it doesn't matter. If you're a fire team leader, you're a fire team leader.
Yeah.
Like, there isn't an easy way to designate that until you put them in the trial of fire.
Gotcha.
And honestly, that's a slight to leadership if they want an easier way. Sorry, it is.
Yeah. But the intention of a fire team leader would be, one, to go into a situation and then have maybe 100% success rate, or become a unit commander. So the intention is future, and assumption is how people see you in order to get to that future intention. Is that how you meant to write about it?
Yeah, but I would say it's more of how you expect people to see you.
Okay.
You don't know how they see you.
The intention or the assumption?
The assumption.
Okay. How you expect people. Okay. So similar to dress for success or dress for the job you want.
Yeah.
Where I always used to wear the next rank that I wanted to be in my cover. I got out as a corporal, but at some point I was a sergeant, and instead of putting staff sergeant chevrons in my cover, I had warrant officer 1 chevrons. So that's my personal assumption, and intention at the same time. I want people to see me as a top leadership role, therefore I'm going to act as a top leadership role, and then at the same time my intention is to internally become that person. Yeah,
and we did the same thing at the academy. The academy, you'd buy the shoulder boards for the next year.
Yeah.
Officers do that too. You'll see 03s that buy 04 gear. You see 04s who buy 05 gear.
Yeah.
And they put it somewhere special to them. Like, everyone, that's a great example.
So what would an assumption be for somebody transitioning out, right? The intention is, let's say the intention is to transition smoothly, move into a place that is acceptable for a single family, or maybe just that one person. The intention is to have a job that pays, let's say, $80,000 a year. The intention is to take a vacation for 3 months prior to even looking for a job. But what would the assumption? How would somebody assume that mindset or that personality?
I think a dangerous assumption would be that no matter where you are, 5, 10, or 20 years, it's going to be easy for you to crosswalk your same experience and command the same salary.
Yeah.
That's the number one.
Yeah. And you write about that. You said, and this was fantastic for me to come across in your book, that for every $10,000 you wish to make, you're going to do about a month of unemployment. And I had to do the math on my fingers because I don't do good math sometimes. I sat there and I was like, let me see. From May, September, okay, well that makes sense, because May was when I was kind of forced, like slapped in the face and said, hey, wake up, it's time to start living again. And then looking for work was a full-time job for me. Looking for work was 8 to 10 hours a day. Now, whether I was, at the beach, kind of, taking a day off or something, I was still checking my phone. I was still on LinkedIn, and I was still, sending out resumes. Even though, I was at the beach, I was still on my phone. Throughout the day, I'd be checking. And so it was a full-time job. Now, obviously, I wasn't sitting in front of the computer for 8 hours a day, which sometimes I was. But if I do the math, my first job was $56K base salary, and then, I could make up to 120 if I traveled. But I had to be on the road for 6 to 8 months in order to make that kind of money, right? But we're talking about round up to $60,000, right? So May, June, July, August, September. So I was pretty much hitting it hard for about 5 months. So 56. And then if we take into account 1 month of unemployment per, every $10,000, I was like, wow, that's impressive. I mean, I know it's not the equation for everybody, but it definitely makes sense because why? You're training yourself on how to do job interviews and manipulate your resume, right? I mean, are those the reasons that you said it would take 1 month per 10,000?
So I gotta admit, that's not mine. That's not my quote. So here's what happened. My TAPS instructor, Miss C.J. Johnson, she's amazing. I went to TAPS with a bunch of E9s and O6s, and there's this argument about, salary and skills and whatnot, and that's where she said that. And I'd never seen so many light bulbs go off at one time because no one had told any of us that ever before. And her argument was the same as the argument as yours, is that, look, you're learning a whole new set of skills. And her impact was that you don't want to start looking for jobs when you're on terminal leave because you've already wasted part of your time on active service doing the same thing. If your retirement date is 1 October, you've got 90 days of terminal plus 30 days of retirement leave. That's only 4 months. That's only $40,000. You got to do more stuff before that in order to really be where you want to be on the outside. So that was part of that was a puzzle piece that really has always stuck me ever since. The way I look at it is, well, how about you expect 1 year of downtime for every year you're in service?
Okay.
Because if you've been in 20 years, you're not, or you shouldn't just walk out on a Friday, walk back on a Monday and think everything's okay. You've got the return to worry about. You've got the family, like you said, the family who hasn't seen you, who has to see you a lot more often. You may want to go back to school. You've got a whole lot of other cultural components that you can't account for with a salary that you do have to account for to really make sure your transition is commanded well. So yeah, it's the skills you have to learn. It's setting the horizon properly. It's setting expectations properly, in that you can't just walk out as an 05 and expect to get an 05 salary job within a month. It's just not going to happen. There's no fucking way. And not only that, when you account for the increase, just a standard increase you automatically have to have for taxable housing allowance now, taxable special incentives and pays, that 05, who's an 05 in San Diego, it's probably going to make $20,000 more just to have the same cost of living as a civilian the day he retires.
Yeah.
And then you add on top of that, do you expect to use your retirement to supplement your income, or do you expect to save your retirement and make an entirely different income because the argument changes? In 04 at 20, I get $45,000 a year pre-tax. I will. Now, do I want to make $120 a year with the skills that I have on top of my 45 in retirement, or do I want to make $80 a year with the skills that I have and use my 45 retirement to supplement my $80,000 salary? That's two different levels of employment. That is being a senior leader at the ground level versus being the director level of employment. That is so saying, can I be a GS 11 or a GS 13, 14? Like, that is the challenge that has to be decided up front. You talk about your story. You got your job offer, the one you took, and it was shitty negotiation. They really weren't upfront with you. They gave you the promotion, didn't give you the money. Like, it creates a lot of anxiety, and it creates a lot more stress.
Mm-hmm.
No, get rid of it up front. Figure out up front, all right, if I want to make $100,000 a year, that's 10 months. I need to start now. Because it's not just, like you said, the resumes, the interviews, the hard skills of job hunting. It's networking. Networking, number one, is now I've got a year to build the network that will get me employed the day I retire.
Yeah.
I'd rather be in the position where I could say no to jobs right now, 4.5 years out, than hustling June of 2021 to pick whatever I can and go wherever I can go, because that's all I can get, because I don't want to lose the gap in salary. So there's a whole lot of other things that come into play when you think about just salary, when you think about just where you want to retire to, that the ratio works out on, whether you take it from a cost perspective of 1 month per 10 grand, or where you take it from a time perspective of 1 month per every year of service. They both pretty much about even out. They really do.
Yeah. And if you're looking to make a career transition, let's say, for instance, you wanted to change from ports to, I don't know, government. You want to be a politician, mm-hmm. right? For Brunswick, you want to be the mayor of Brunswick. Mm-hmm. How do you? Okay, let's not say Brunswick because you're around there. Let's say Cincinnati. Okay, you want to move to Cincinnati. Okay. You want to get into politics. How do you recommend that somebody who's starting new, who has the mindset of starting fresh, that they get to start networking outside of LinkedIn, right? Because LinkedIn is a very important tool. It can do what you want to do if you use it right. However, not everybody's savvy on LinkedIn, and that's another conversation. So how would you recommend other ways? Are there other ways that you recommend?
Absolutely. Podcasting is a way, obviously. There's always other ways. Gotcha. You have to figure out what would be the news cycle of the people you want to connect with. Gotcha. And get into the news cycle.
Gotcha.
So for some, it's LinkedIn. Absolutely, it is LinkedIn. If you want to get into the news cycle of hiring managers and recruiters, you can use LinkedIn. So for me, if I want to get into the offshore oil and gas industry after I retire from the military, I'm going to probably move to Houston. I'm going to try to connect with coasties who've also done commercial vessel safety, marine inspection, oil pollution response, and get my name out there that way, wherever they are. That means going to Clean Gulf Conference. That means going to the International Workboat Show. That means getting into that news cycle, getting into that content cycle, really more so than news cycle, of those people who I think will help me get to the next step. So if I want to be mayor of Cincinnati, it's not easy, but I've got to think about, well, one, what party do I want to? Am I going to be Democrat, Republican, or Independent? Two, where are those influencers for that state are, and how do they get their news? How do they get and create their content? Three, can I get stationed in Ohio to start working in Cincinnati to get my name out there and getting on the radar? Mm-hmm. Because, like you're saying, the transition decision, the choice to transition is long before the Twilight Tour. And we should be using our Twilight Tours to help us answer this question of how can I connect with people, not just by using LinkedIn. Military members have the hardest problem, and I don't understand why, of making network connections while they're on deployment. Yeah. It's a difficult problem. If you're forward deployed, not even Afghanistan or Iraq, if you're in Germany, Okinawa, if you're in Oconus, it is difficult to get in front of hiring managers, even if you have a year left and you're ready to get out of the military. And I don't know why, but what it tells me is that proximity is a factor, and whatever you can do to gain proximity will determine what you can do. And it's the same for government. If you want to be a GS, odds are you're going to want a DC assignment for your last tour or your current tour, and you're going to want to try to transition out and do a Friday, Monday, and grow a beard in your same job Monday morning. Yeah. Like, that's the norm, right?
Yeah.
It is. So I would say, how do you get into the content cycle of the people you need in your corner and do whatever it takes to get into that content cycle? And this is a lot of my first book, too. This is the book I wrote when I was on deployment to Saudi Arabia. It's the idea of, I said, leverage. You figure out what activates you. You figure out what excites you about what you want to do after the uniform, assuming that's your choice. and then you figure out how you can leverage that opportunity. So